Hi guys. As most of you know, or some of you, my oldest daughter just left home to go serve as a missionary, and my second son is going to be leaving home as well in less than a year. So it's caused me a lot of reflection about what I've taught them and about their lives, and what I want to make sure my younger ones know before they leave home and things like that. And so as I've been thinking about these things, I came up with 6 things I want to be sure that my kids know before they leave my home. And the first one is that I love them. I love them no matter what, whether they're making mistakes or making choices that I would prefer they didn't make, or whatever path they need to be on, or whatever learning experiences that they need to have. I want them to know that I will always be there. I will always be trying to help them and help them through things. And so that's really important. The second thing is that God feels the same way, that God is always there for them, and that He will welcome them with open arms whenever they want to turn to Him, and that He will help them through anything that they may need help with. I want them to develop a relationship with Him before they leave my home, so that they have, experimented and understood how He communicates with them, and what His voice kind of feels like to them, and so that they can, be guided and move on their path with that understanding and that knowledge of how to hear His voice and discern it from the myriad of voices through life. And so that's another one. That's the third thing. And going along with that, just to have habits established in their lives that connect them to Him. And so, for instance, I try to make sure that they have a personal devotional in the morning, and just have that habit where they're reading their scripture, saying their prayers, and then asking 2 questions. I encourage them to ask, how would you like me to, what would you like me to study or learn about today? And then who would you like me to help? Who would you like me to serve, and how? I think if they just get in the habit of asking those 2 questions every day when they get up in the morning, and writing them down and trying to do them through the day, that they will be guided to whatever it is that they need to do, and whoever they need to help, and help them be outward minded, to be thinking about others, and how God, they're here to help other of God's children as well. So in the courses that I teach, I call these their marching orders, because God is our leader, and we get our marching orders from Him every day. We don't have to wait to, a lot of times we're like, I don't know, what would you have me do with my life? And instead we can ask, what would you have me do with my day? And little by little, that's how often He works, is giving us step by step and what we should do that day, and we are eventually guided to whatever other work He has for us. And so the other connection habits that I hope that they will establish, and that I try to help them have, is an evening connection habit, where they check back in with Him and report and say, how did I do? How can I improve? And in a positive way, not in this, oh man, I failed again, because we all will fail and do things wrong, but more in this, like, okay, what can I learn from these experiences? How can I do better? And thank you for the strength that I've had, and for the things I did well, and please help me with the things that I'm struggling with. So just that reporting back at the end of the day, that connection ritual. And then eventually I want them to also establish the habit of checking in with Him in the middle of the day, and just, a quick prayer, and like, how am I doing, and with these marching orders I got this morning, and how can I continue to do them, or, am I done, or is there a change in strategy? Has something come up that I need to change? And so I think that's also really important. And there's a fourth one that just comes up as needed, and that's the emotional one. I want them to realize that their emotions can be triggers, and that they can use them as, I'm feeling off for some reason, let me connect back to God, and figure out what I need to do with these emotions, and, how can I snap out of them, or how can I, what are they here for? What am I missing, or what am I doing? Or so if they could establish those 4 connection rituals in their life, I think that they will be really well off. They will be able to be guided and directed, and have success in whatever endeavor they want to do. So those are really important. And then the other thing I want them to make sure that they leave home with is an understanding of the underlying assumptions for many of the teachings that they're going to get in the world. And so they're going to go into college and be bombarded with all this compelling evidence about certain things that maybe aren't in alignment with their belief system. And I want them to realize that all evidence has an underlying assumption. Facts are facts by themselves, but when we start presenting them as a group, you're making assumptions, and you're making even the facts themselves can be swayed by assumptions. You know, even something as that seems as factual as like carbon dating or radiometric dating or something, where you're dating rocks, can be where was I? Sorry. Can be interpreted differently depending on the assumptions you have when you go into making the tests. And so there's just a lot of assumptions, and I want them to be aware that they're there, so that when they go and they can say, okay, just because this is presented to me as fact doesn't mean that it is necessarily fact. There may be assumptions behind it, especially in the area of science, but even in art, there's certain assumptions that we're making, and we can be aware that even the experts are making them, and we can decide for ourselves and discern that truth as we're aware of those and what they are. So in the Warrior Youth courses that are on my site, we go into some of those and understand those assumptions so that we can be aware when we move on in life that they're there and what we can do with them. And then the fifth thing is that they have a warrior mentality. I want them to realize that that, you know, even though it's nice to go on vacations and do fun things, that this life isn't about making money and doing fun things, that there's a higher purpose for them, and that they have special gifts and talents they've been blessed with to make this world a better place, to release some of the suffering that is all around us that sometimes we forget about when we are so privileged and we live in, you know, so many conveniences and things. And so I want them to be aware that when sometimes we're scrolling Facebook, somebody is out there suffering, and that there's something that we can do about that, and that we have an obligation to do something about it because of the privileges we've been given. And so to have a purpose, to have purpose in their life, and to get up every morning excited about that purpose. And then the last thing is how to find what that is. And so I talked a little bit about the connection rituals, but just this process of working from the inside out, that when you have a heart that is right, that your intentions are right, then that interprets to your behavior as well. And so establishing habits that strengthen your heart, and the courses I call them strengthening your breastplate, so you can hold on to those principles and try to live them. And then habits that strengthen your mind. And so in the course we go through each area. So we'll start with the heart, and we'll say, what's a good habit we can attach to one of these rituals, maybe morning or midday, that will strengthen our heart. So maybe it's in my church we go to a temple, so maybe it's attending the temple weekly. It helps my intentions be in the right place, or maybe meditating, something that would be helpful. And then, you know, after 2 weeks of working on that, then, and we have accountability in the courses, so we'll say, you know, here's my goal for the next couple weeks, and then we can at the end of the week say, what did we learn, where did we fail and why, and how can we improve. And so it's a very positive, you know, we're going to make mistakes, but what do we learn from them. And then we move on to our mind and habits for our mind, and we'll find one little thing, because it's these little habits that make a huge difference in the long run. So nothing that's huge or impossible, but maybe it's starting a gratitude journal, or bullet pointing some things you're grateful for that day in the evening, attaching that to your evening connection ritual that I talked about earlier. And then we move on to honing our weapon, which is our body, right? Our health goals. And so our body is the weapon of our spirit, so we want to try to keep it healthy and in tune as much as possible. And so we'll think of some kind of way we can do that, and make a goal, and then follow through as well as we can. And then we move on to our relationships. Training with our unit is what I call it. And so how can we establish better relationships with our family members, and support each other and work with one another, or whatever group we happen to be with. And then the fifth one would be our environment. You know, once we have our heart and mind and body and relationships, and we're working on those, we try to establish a habit that helps us detox, you know, our environment, put things in it that uplift us, and take things out that maybe bring us down or aren't very good for us to be looking or seeing or listening to, or even, you know, finding ways to organize our room or our home that keeps it happy. So that would be a next little habit we attach. And then the last one, we move on to our combat skills. So we're attaching a habit that helps us build our skills to be able to do the work we want to do, or that we feel like that calls us, and that we see the suffering and we want to help with. And so we start putting a little habit in our day that helps us work on those skills and those talents that help us be able to do that, and maybe start sharing it as well, sharing some of that truth with our different unique ways. And so I want them to understand what those are. My phone's running out of battery, so I don't know if this movie or this video will end abruptly, but Those are the 6 ones, the ones that I just want them to be able to leave my home with. And like I said, there's courses on my site that I go through each one of those, and we kind of help each other support them. And our next semester is starting soon. It's in September. We start a semester in September, one in January and one in May, so that we can go. It's a 16-week course, and we can go through these things and help each other through them. And then we look back and say, okay, so what did I learn? I try to have one live experience in the adult course if people want to come, so they can connect with each other, see one another, face to face. In the youth course, I have the option for having a couple of times a week, if people are able. Some people live far away, but if people are able to come and have an outdoor activity where we have some kind of simulation that goes with the theme, and we also have the option of reading a book of our choosing that helps us, and have a book discussion at the end of the month for any of the courses. That helps us understand these habits better, see them in other people, and why they're so important. And so anyway, all of that is described better if you want to go on the site and look at the different courses. I'm kind of nervous because my battery's running out and I'm not comfortable in front of the camera, so I probably didn't explain it very well. But if you have questions, please just put them on the comments, and I'd love to answer any questions that you may have about them and about what's going on and what I'm trying to do. And if we get at least 8 people signed up for the youth course, then we'll hold that this coming starting the week after next, this coming week. So that'll be really fun. And so yeah, again, if you have questions, please post them in the comments. I'm happy to answer and clarify whatever I didn't clarify. I'm speaking really fast again because I'm nervous and because my battery's running out, so hopefully that all made sense. Thanks for listening, and feel free to ask whatever questions you have.